The year 2624 promised new beginnings in Lijiang City, where the Second Academy was preparing for its awakening ceremony. Luo Heng, the director of the academy, solemnly announced that the awakening would not only determine the future, but also reveal the unknown sides of the individual. Students waited their turn with hope, dreaming of the power of berserkers or the secrets of pharmacy, while some simply feared the encounter with the unknown. The world of eternity broke free many years ago, offering an escape into the limitlessness of virtual reality. Euphoria from virtual victories and battles made humanity forget about the limits of reality, plunging deeper and deeper into eternity. And then the world changed when virtual quests and monsters became part of real life, expanding the boundaries of ordinary existence. Thus, eternity became an integral part of the real world, opening up new opportunities and challenges. Li, a new inhabitant of this world, stood out among the others with his appearance and the cross around his neck, symbolizing hope. After losing his mother, he faced a new challenge when his sister fell ill with an incurable disease. Li fights for his sister's life by turning to low-level priests as medical supplies quickly run out. He was forced to sell his house and ask relatives for help to raise funds for his sister's treatment, which was becoming more and more expensive. Faced with a choice, Li realizes that his path is to awaken the battle class, which will allow him to make money from cards and find a cure for his sister. The class awakening ceremony is just around the corner, and all the students are excitedly waiting for their turn to step into the magic circle led by the majestic 24th level mage. The magic circle, illuminated by purple light and ancient hieroglyphs, promises each student a unique path and destiny. Li Xiangyang, a 5th grade teacher, list in hand, ready to name the first student to step into the circle. All eyes are on the youngster who emerges from the crowd at number 1, ready to be a part of the magic and history that is about to unfold. Li intently watched the ceremony that had already begun, feeling the weight of the moment. In a world infested with monsters, martial classes were of the highest value, but only 3 out of thousands could appear during the awakening ceremony. Unfortunately, the youngster who first stepped into the arena didn't get the fighting class he wanted, suffering his first defeat of the evening. The call to number 31 was answered by Li himself, who was surrounded by the support and faith of his classmates, although the unpredictability of the awakening process is known. Li, an A-class elder, was facing a crucial moment, his academic achievements and statistics promising him a great chance of success. His 6th form teacher, Tang Tianzhong, watched the ceremony, discussing his students' chances with a colleague. They compared their class's successes in awakening the martial classes, with a slight rivalry in votes. But suddenly the teacher's attention is fixed on Li, who looks unusually motionless in the middle of the arena. Li felt his pendant suddenly come to life and rise into the air, illuminated by a mysterious light. The system determined his potential by activating the starting gift VDJ, the S+ talent of the Protection of the Holy Angel class. He stared in disbelief at the window of choice that appeared in front of him, almost not believing in his unexpected chance. This pendant, found in a street market in his past life, now opened up incredible possibilities for him. Activating the system and getting the S+ talent came as a gift from fate that would change his future. In this world where talent is graded from F to S, Li received the highest possible grade, which promises him immense potential. This awakening ceremony not only revealed the martial classes, but also showed an incredible connection between the talents of the students and the classes they were assigned. The teachers, focused on Li, did not understand his actions and watched in surprise as he looked up, wondering at the student's inexplicable behavior. Suddenly, as if waking up from an eternal sleep, a red jet shot out of the sky, heading straight for the arena, causing astonishment among those present. Everyone present in the arena, including the crowd, looked up in unison, watching the incredible phenomenon. The magician and the director, faced with this phenomenon, immediately realized that they had witnessed a unique awakening of talent. From the depths of this mystical jet, a magical woman with 6 wings descends to the ground, like an angel, capturing the gaze of all those present. She was approaching Li, who seemed entranced by her beauty. The pendant around his neck vibrated with powerful energy. "The glow is your faith and the source of your strength," the woman said, emphasizing the importance of faith to Li. She assured that his faith would protect him with holy light capable of dispelling darkness and protecting him from evil. The promise to be by his side materialized into a visible mark on his skin that would be an eternal reminder of her protection. The energy surging through his body transformed his experience into something otherworldly, filling his existence with light and new sensations. 3 figures appeared in front of Li, a Saint Paladin, a priest, and a mage, each representing a unique path and opportunity. The teachers watched in amazement as Li was given the chance to choose between rare talents, which is a huge stroke of luck in the awakening ceremony. The discovery of secret classrooms caused real surprise among teachers, because this happens extremely rarely. The secret classes that appeared in front of Lee amazed the imagination with their brilliance and beauty, each of them equipped with unique weapons. Fascinated by the sight before him, Lee knew he had to make a choice that would determine his fate and place in this new world. Lee viewed the Light Mage as a pure DPS class, acknowledging their high damage output, but their vulnerability in self-defense made him question it. The Priest, a master of salvation and resurrection, was attractive with his skills, but his dependence on others in battle made Lee reject this choice. Saint Paladin, a perfectly balanced class with defense, attack, and buff skills, seemed to be the best choice for Lee. Selecting Paladin through the system prompt, Lee felt it was just what he needed. The Paladin's outfit, much larger than Lee's, shone with unparalleled beauty. Humility, bravery, empathy, and responsibility are the Paladin's key qualities that define his actions and purpose. Following these principles, Lee, already as a Paladin, promised to fight for justice at all stages of his life. The moment after his choice, 6 wings lit up on Lee's back, symbolizing his new power. The transformation into the 6-winged Paladin was a visual confirmation of his new identity. The system greeted Lee upon awakening to the 10th level Saint Paladin class, granting him new skills and additional progression points. Students at the academy, amazed by his transformation, immediately began asking Lee to take them with him to the final exam. His teacher, making his way through the crowd, ordered everyone to stay away from Lee and advised him to rest until his meeting with the principal tomorrow. Upon returning home, Lee found that his stats had greatly improved, as well as additional stat points. With power as his top priority, Lee used his points, feeling the energy fill his body, enhancing his fighting abilities. Soon there was a notification about a new Saint Paladin mission, which Lee could not ignore, considering the promised reward for it. The task that fell to Lee turned out to be a test at a location specially selected for his level. Moving to the task immediately plunged Lee into a serious test where every mistake could cost him his life, because death in the task meant death in reality. He found himself in a mine surrounded by darkness and the unknown. Surveying the environment, Lee remembered the lessons about the ancient rugby monsters that lived in the mines, becoming dangerous when meeting people. While Lee was recovering his knowledge of monsters in his memory, his first encounter with a real monster appeared before him. Due to the improvement of his stats, Lee felt much more agile and stronger, deciding to defeat the monster without using special skills. The monster's claws swept past his neck, but Lee, thanks to his speed, saw all of the monster's attacks as slow and predictable. However, one of the monster's attacks unexpectedly hit its target, inflicting a severe wound on Lee's stomach and causing him to bleed. A defensive error cost Lee a wound, but he quickly decided to cast a slow regeneration to restore his health. Due to the recovery, Lee was able to counterattack using his blade of pure white light. Using a level 4 tiger attack technique, Lee lunged at the monster, inflicting numerous injuries on it. With the force of his attack, he not only defeated the monster, but also caused destruction to the environment, leaving behind only ruins. "That's it, baby," Lee whispered, feeling the satisfaction of his victory. Legend has it that the monster still lies in that mine, a reminder of the Paladin's strength and courage. To train his fists, Lee punched the monster in the chest a few more times, using the moment to improve his fighting skills. The victory over the ancient monster of rugby was considered the end of the test for Lee, for which he received an A. A notification appeared on his device screen with a prize: 10 extra stat points and a basic one-handed sword as a reward for successfully completing it. Now Lee could leave the testing ground and return to the real world. When he returned, he immediately grabbed the phone, seeing that it was already 5 p.m., and remembered the need to visit his sister in the hospital. At that time, his sister was watching the news, which was actively discussing the event with the appearance of a holy angel, which, as it turned out, was related to her brother. When a nurse came to her ward and demanded to pay $10,000 for the treatment, Sister Lee was shocked, because before the fee was only $5,000. The amount in the new receipt seemed astronomical to her, especially considering the doubling of the cost. At that moment, a man entered the ward and tried to calm the situation by interfering in the conversation between the nurse and Sister Lee. Having finished the conversation, the nurse reminded about the need to pay for medical services by the end of the day, after which she left the ward. The sister, impressed by such persistence, asked the stranger who he was. The man introduced himself as Secretary Zhao Wenbing, a friend of her older brother, showing his business card. Entering the ward, Lee saw 2 men near his sister and was surprised, trying to find out who they were. One of the men introduced himself as the mayor's secretary, wanting to discuss some matters with Lee. Given the mayor's high status in the city, a meeting with his secretary was considered a significant event, suggesting the importance of this meeting to Lee and his sister. Lee respectfully shook hands with the secretary, acknowledging the importance of the moment. They both realized that the hospital room was not the best place to discuss their plans. The secretary decided that one of his bodyguards would stay behind to watch over Miss Xiao while he went to discuss the details with Li. In the cafe, the mayor personally congratulated Li on receiving the S grade, emphasizing that such an achievement is impossible without talent and hard work. The secretary said the mayor has taken a special interest in Li, providing him with resources to prepare for upcoming challenges and exams. The key to the resources that awaited Li in the city bank was left in front of him by the mayor, who had high hopes for Li. Li accepted the offer with a smile, feeling grateful for the trust and support. Returning to his sister, Li shared with her the news that filled her with joy and pride for his brother. Feeling responsible for his sister's health, Li decided to use the St. Paladin's slow regeneration skill. The attempt at treatment brought the sister a feeling of warmth and comfort, almost like a natural source of health. After completing the recovery process, Li noticed an improvement in his sister's health, which strengthened his choice to become a St. Paladin. The next day, thanks to his new status, Li became the object of attention of many universities who wanted to recruit him. Together with the director, he met with representatives of these universities, ready to discuss the conditions of his future studies. Among the representatives were distinguished personalities from leading universities, each of whom had something special to offer Li. At an important moment in his life, Li stands on the threshold of an unusual future. He makes a low bow at the door, expressing deep respect and readiness for new challenges. Amid the bustle of anticipation, one of the teachers takes the floor. He reveals the essence of the offer from Rongyang University, getting straight to the point, as if anticipating Li's curiosity. The offer is impressive. 2 million yuan and 3 exclusive St. Paladin class skill books, an amount that exceeds the monthly income of an ordinary family, which is about 6,000 yuan. Rongyang University sets the stakes high by offering a reward for just one gesture of joining. The exclusivity of books is also not ignored. These are books that ordinary people don't have access to, and even the mayor couldn't provide Li with that level of resources. The competition heats up when a representative from another university enters the game with an even bigger offer. 3 million yuan upon admission, and 3 St. Paladin books each year, with which the awakened Paladin will teach. This opens up a prospect for Li beyond his wildest expectations. The special representative of the university, having gathered the attention of all those present, said that the seriousness of current students is lacking to achieve true mastery. With unwavering confidence, she offers them a unique resource capable of taking their academic abilities to the next level. The school director, stunned by this news, can barely contain his emotions. A rare resource that transforms even the smallest creatures into legendary warriors. It is a priceless treasure that cannot be measured in gold or silver. The teacher, engrossed in this discussion, asks Li what choice he will make when faced with a difficult decision. Li, thinking about the proposal, feels the burden of responsibility and, despite the temptation, decides to refuse. His refusal is evidence of deep self-knowledge and maturity. Despite the difficulties he faces, Li declares his desire to enter one of the 3 prestigious universities, demonstrating his ambition and commitment to the future. Known as the elite among educational institutions, these universities are a dream destination for thousands of students, including those of various races and cultures, making the competition extremely high. A representative of one of these universities, lit by a blue aura, accuses Li of insufficient training and missed opportunities, causing him to doubt his own abilities. Encountering this powerful aura forces Li to rethink his path, but the criticism only hardens his determination to prove his worth. Principal Li, using his own purple aura, stands up for his student, emphasizing the importance of believing in each student's potential. Li, not wanting to waste any more time arguing, chooses a course of action and leaves the meeting, ready for the next trials and challenges that lie ahead. With a month to go before the crucial exam, Li believes deeply in his powers, backed by an unusual system that promises to transform him into an unstoppable force. He firmly decided he will definitely become a student of one of the 3 prestigious universities. A month later, the entrance exam ceremony begins, the examiner of which is the demon Yang himself. Students feel anxious when faced with such a powerful challenge. Among the crowd, curiosity about Li, already surrounded by a halo of legends, rages. 2 young men notice his presence. One nudges the other, telling him to look back at Li. Walking through the ordinary crowd, Li stands out with his paladin aura, a testament to his exceptional strength and dedication. His newfound power becomes the talk of the town, with Li now recognized as the ultimate warrior. The exam begins in a mysterious and eerie dark forest, where every second counts and students will have to fight for survival. The contestants realize that failure in this challenge will mean not only academic failure, but also actual death, which adds to their resolve. Students from different classes, including Sun Qiang and Motion, gathered at the start, ready to face the challenge. Lee stands alone in the 5th grade, determined to face the nightmarish ordeal alone, demonstrating his unique bravery. The principals of the educational institutions are watching the developments, hoping that Lee has a secret trick up his sleeve. Lee's choice to choose a nightmarish difficulty level with a high risk of death surprised even the most seasoned observers. The dark forest turns out to be full of dangers. Monsters lie in wait for victims, hiding behind trees and leaves. Hearing a rustle behind him, Lee instantly grabs his giant weapon, the blunt. A monster much larger than him attacks Lee from under the leaves. Lee swings his weapon with all his might to hit the enemy. His 1-star axe, wielded with great skill, easily defeats the monster, highlighting Lee's immeasurable strength and bravery. After defeating the first enemy, Lee is faced with a new challenge. Groups of cat-like monsters attack him from all sides, rushing 3 individuals at a time. However, this does not become a problem for Lee. He skillfully dodges attacks and counterattacks, destroying each monster with impressive precision and skill. At the climax of the fight, Lee rips off one of the monster's limbs with immense force and transforms it into a blade of pure white light, piercing another enemy through it. This maneuver, turning a part of the monster into a weapon against itself, became a true innovation on the battlefield, something no student had done before. The crowd of observers was shocked by what they saw. Anyone who managed to capture this scene on their phone felt really lucky. A discussion began among the audience about Lee's extraordinary speed and magical power, which far exceeded the abilities of the cat-like monsters. A discussion ensues between the 2 teachers watching the fight about how a student with such potential ended up in the 5th grade. One of them believes that although Lee has an impressive fighting mindset, his methods are excessively risky because he has spent much of his energy on the first wave of attacks without considering future challenges. The teachers doubt that Lee will have the strength to continue the fight, predicting that the mindless use of energy will lead to his inevitable defeat. And so, before the conversations had died down, the next great wave of cat-like monsters approached Lee. Will he have the strength and skills to cope with this new, even more massive challenge? Lee displays extreme strength and skill, using his blunt force in such a way that each swing cuts through the air, releasing jets of yellow fire. Thanks to his unique skills, he disables entire groups of monsters with a single blow, demonstrating unparalleled combat effectiveness. Lee uses a variety of combat techniques, each aimed at destroying monsters by using their weaknesses against themselves. The apogee of the battle becomes the moment when Lee strikes the cat monster's head with incredible force, splitting its skull in 2. After defeating the last enemy in this wave, Lee watches as the last monster falls lifeless, marking the end of the challenge. But instead of peace, a portal opens before Lee, which is not the end, but only the transition to the next challenge. This new level unfolding before him does not promise to be an easy task. On the contrary, it hints at even greater trials and adventures that lie ahead for Lee. The previous challenges he faced seemed too easy for Lee, but at this new level, events await him that promise to be much more interesting and challenging, raising the stakes and testing his abilities like never before. On the bustling podium, a young streamer begins his stream by broadcasting the exam of Lee, a famous student from the 2nd Academy known as Shining Paladin, who is gifted with an S-level talent. The streamer's screen lights up with scenes of Lee's success as he completes a level on nightmarish difficulty in just 3 minutes and 17 seconds to the delight of the audience. Not losing any opportunity, the streamer approaches a professional operator with a huge video camera and begins to demonstrate his broadcast right in front of the lens, attracting the attention of everyone present. Meanwhile, Lee is moving to the next level, ready for new challenges. A loud crowd of monsters appears in front of him, and among them is the Minotaur from December 14th, which stands in front of 6 demonic cats, posing as the main threat. If in the previous level Lee fought with simple idiots, now his risk of death increases dramatically due to real monsters. The monsters begin to act more actively, tearing the air with their loud growls which echoed through the arena. The Minotaur, faster and more aggressive than the others, charged at Lee, who stood ready. Demonic cats, expertly managing their aura, prepare a powerful attack, concentrating energy for the upcoming strike. Lee realizes that one of the Earth Cats has placed a curse on him. Small black paws begin to wrap around his legs, limiting his mobility and threatening his position in battle. Spectators, watching as a crowd of monsters approached Lee, were sure that he was in mortal danger. However, Lee quickly assessed the situation and came to a decision on how to get out of it with minimal losses. He saw the nearest threat, a demonic cat with fiery paws, charging straight at him. Lee, fingers crossed, whispers the words of an ancient incantation as he prepares to perform the Cross of Divine Light. A giant cross of fire falls from the heavens to the ground, instantly incinerating the demonic cats, leaving only ashes in their place. Cross of Divine Light, a level 4 spell, causes a continuous stream of light energy, dealing damage to all enemies in a certain area, resulting in the instant death of all demon cats. A teacher watching the battle from the stands acknowledges the mastery of this spell, classifying it as one of the highest skill levels. With all the demonic cats put down, Lee is left with only the Minotaur, face to face. Lee confidently declares to the Minotaur, "Now you're alone, it's your turn," emphasizing his readiness for the final showdown. The Minotaur, as it turns out, has berserker skills and invulnerability, making him a formidable opponent even for Lee. But one of the Minotaur's most powerful skills, the Battle Stomp, was immediately activated, and the ground began to crack under his massive hooves. Under the effect of invulnerability, the Minotaur activates its Rage to Attack skill, making its attacks unstoppable and instilling fear in the audience. However, Lee is not outdone, using his Airstrike skill, which creates a powerful wave that knocks the Minotaur back and allows for a counterattack. Taking advantage of the moment when the Minotaur was still recovering from the blow, Lee charged in, performing the Blade of Pure Radiance technique in the air, hitting the monster with great precision. All that remains is to deliver the last decisive blow to the Minotaur lying powerless on the ground. It was the final blow. No one could have predicted that Lee would take down such a powerful opponent with such ease. Dark blood oozes from the Minotaur's wound, staining the ground in a thick hue. Coming closer, Lee feels the monster's faint breathing. Instead of using the weapon to finish him off, Lee decides to finish off the Minotaur by stomping on its face in the final act of victory. It's time to move on to the next level, where Lee awaits a meeting with a team of bosses, a new challenge on his way. The stands erupt with screams and shouts of delight as everyone witnessing this battle is enthralled by Lee's prowess, especially his ability to take down the monster in berserker mode. The mayor's assistant, mesmerized by Lee's feats, watched with burning eyes, unable to believe that only a month ago Lee had mastered his class and now was using it with such skill. Sitting next to the director of the academy, he greets him, admitting that Lee is a true genius who has appeared within the walls of his educational institution. One of the spectators, watching the tension of the battle, asks aloud why Lee does not rest before the decisive encounter with the boss, emphasizing his unusual endurance. In the state of Suhan County, home to many talented individuals, many try to play through the nightmarish level of soloing in order to earn a place in the top 100. On his way to the boss throne, Lee encounters the Minotaur King, whose power and skills remain a mystery due to his high rank of 16th evil. Lee's invasion of his domain enrages the Minotaur King, who rises from his throne and swings his giant hammer at Lee. At this critical moment, the primal form of the Paladin is activated. Kaka appears before Lee, reminding him that he is not alone and ready to help in the battle. Lee soon transforms into a full-fledged Paladin, dressed in festive weapons and ready for battle. Weapon in hand, Lee charges at the Minotaur King, swinging his axe the size of the Minotaur itself. Even Lee's powerful punch, boosted by 4 buffs, seemed unable to penetrate the Minotaur's massive body, highlighting its impressive strength and resilience in the face of threat. The Paladin uses the moment to precisely strike the Minotaur King's chest, aiming the blow at a weak spot to slice through his flesh. The king's response is quick. A mighty roar comes from his mouth, and though the Paladin manages to hit him, the boss raises his giant axe, preparing to counterattack. The Minotaur hits the Paladin's shoulder with his hammer, which breaks the 5 concrete columns in the hall from the penetrating force. Fortunately, Lee is protected by the Saint Paladin's armor, which prevents serious injury, although the impact was so strong that it could have broken his bones. Paladin Lee decides to use the method Spear of Victory, which is created from the existing divine light and causes significant damage to the enemy. A spear fired at the Minotaur King does a lot of damage to him because he doesn't have time to react adequately due to his lower dexterity. Despite the great power of the Minotaur King, who is far superior to Lee, the only way to win is through the use of strategy and cleverness. Lee notices that the king's agility is lower than his own and begins to attack from different directions, creating an advantage. In addition to low agility, the Minotaur King has another weakness: durability, which opens up additional opportunities for attack. Although the king has more stamina and health, his recovery ability decreases when attacking, causing him to take more damage and knockback, allowing Lee to land multiple powerful hits in a short amount of time. It became clear that this moment was crucial for Lee, especially when the Minotaur was in a state of intense rage, making him more vulnerable to subsequent attacks. At the critical moment of the attack on Lee, a pop-up appears warning him that he is low on mana, which adds tension to the situation. This forces Lee to be extra careful in managing his resources, as any mistake can result in him failing the exam due to mana depletion. Despite the risk, Lee lunges at the monster with all his courage, delivering a powerful blow with his axe right to the center of the Minotaur's head. After this final blow, the Paladin suit begins to come off Lee, and a voice from the walls declares him the winner of the Nightmare Difficulty Deep Dark Forest Dungeon, with a completion time of 9 minutes and 24 seconds, crowning him first among the contestants. The period of his resettlement was marked by family tragedies, the death of his mother, the illness of his sister, and the accumulation of large debts for treatment, which created considerable pressure on Lee. But even in such difficult conditions, Lee did not give up, believing that the ability to improve his skills and train his fighting spirit would help him cope with the challenges. The system gave him a second chance in life, but he continued to decide his fate himself, deciding to take advantage of this chance, maintaining an unwavering fighting spirit. After defeating the boss, a portal opens in front of Lee. It's time to go home. Leaving the portal, numerous reward windows appear in front of him, offering various items, and his level increases to 13. Lee appears before the fans as a god from heaven, becoming a favorite of the public, who loyally supported him throughout the fight, feeling proud and excited by his successes. The atmosphere in the arena was electrifying as everyone in the audience shouted words of adoration at Lee, shouting, "I love you! You are my god!" Turning his head to the left, Lee saw the headmaster of the school, who proudly stated that based on his years of experience in conducting examinations, he believed that Lee deserved to take the top spot in Sukang district. Suddenly, a luxurious car, worth as much as a house in the capital, stopped in front of the audience, attracting everyone's attention. The mayor's assistant approached the car and announced that the results of the competition would be available in at least 3 days, promising to immediately inform the participants and the public about them. After the last conversation, Zhao Bing quickly fulfilled his promise. Sister Lee was transferred to a luxury hospital, where her condition was monitored by a professional medical team around the clock. While visiting the hospital, Lee came with good news for his sister, full of hope to share his success with her. Stepping to the door of her room, Lee and the nurse felt a piercing cold coming from the room. When they opened the door, it turned out that in the corridor, all the doctors and visitors were mystically frozen, which gave the impression of a temporary stop. Lee immediately started running down the hall to his sister's room as the nurse screamed after him, but soon she too was frozen. Lee, regaining his strength, uses his hatchet to break down the door of the ward, which was covered in ice, showing his determination to get to his sister. He finds a mage girl in the ward casting spells at his sister's bedside, activating an ancient spell wheel that glows with a green glow in an attempt to heal her. Suddenly, an ice dragon starts circling the room, creating a cold atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Lee instinctively prepares to use his energy to fight the dragon, seeing it as a challenge to himself. However, the girl yells at him to stop and not use the energy against the dragon, warning of the possible consequences. Lee, surprised, pauses and approaches the girl to understand the situation better. The mage explains that his sister's heart is in danger of breaking into pieces from wrong actions, emphasizing the fragility of her condition. The sister's illness suddenly worsened, covering everything around with ice, which was caused by the presence of the ice dragon. The mage explains that the best she can do now is to prevent the cold from spreading beyond this floor, asking Lee not to disturb her. Lee, aware of the urgency of the moment, quickly turns to his system, which allows him to control his abilities. He orders the system to channel all of its available resources into improving its slow regeneration ability, hoping to strengthen his sister's condition and sustain her life force in this critical situation. By using all available resources, Lee increases the level of his slow regeneration ability from 4th to 10th, activating an enhanced version of this ability. The mage girl who tried to heal his sister was amazed by the power of the paladin's healing magic, which surpassed even her own abilities as a 23rd level priest. Focusing her will and power, Lee begins the ritual over her sister, going all out. During the ritual, he asks the girl to invite a high-ranking priest, although she initially notes that the priest's schedules are very busy. Lee persists, promising to fulfill any of the priest's requests in the future in exchange for his immediate assistance. The magician immediately agrees and rushes to call the priest, realizing the seriousness of the situation, and Lee continues to make efforts to help his sister. Xiao Yun, Lee's sister, was suffering from an aggravation of the disease that had plagued her every night for the past year, under the influence of a cold aura, causing excruciating pain throughout her body. Lee can barely contain the ice energy emanating from his sister, showing the power of the disease. The situation escalates so much that even outside the hospital one can see how the building is gradually covered with ice. With each passing minute, Lee finds it harder to hold back the cold energy from his sister, and he himself begins to become encased in ice as he fights for his sister's life and faces the unspeakable cold. The ice dragon rampaged uncontrollably throughout the room, leaving cold swirls in its wake. Suddenly, a green layer of energy appeared out of nowhere, hitting the dragon directly in the head, which surprised him. This layer of energy continued to attack, striking the dragon with powerful blows and dealing significant damage. Sister Lee's condition began to deteriorate as the atmosphere of struggle and cold affected her. Lee, feeling panicked and desperate, began to call loudly not to touch his sister, wanting to protect her from any threats. However, the next green layer of energy suddenly hit Lee directly in the chest, knocking him back with great force. Surrounded by a green aura, the girl who summoned this layer ordered the dragon to come closer, preparing for a direct confrontation. She decided to challenge the dragon, showing her determination and courage. On the end of her staff was a cross, with which she boldly struck the dragon squarely in the chin in a display of impressive skill. Not only was her physical strength embedded in each of her strikes, but also the power of her green aura, making her attacks far more powerful than normal strikes, giving her an edge in this unequal battle. The girl, steadfast and determined, had great inner strength, ready to face any challenges. Using her magic spells, she eventually managed to limit the ice dragon's movements by binding him with energy bonds. The decisive moment was her precise strike of the staff on the green mark of magic on the dragon, which allowed it to release its own essence. After that, the healing procedure began to take effect, and the pain began to leave Sister Lee's body, bringing her relief. Lee, coming out from under the rubble of ice, anxiously asked the girl if the danger was over. Making another decisive gesture with her staff across the floor, she began the process of retreating the ice that began to melt throughout the hospital, returning it to normal. Approaching her to introduce herself, the girl introduced herself as Kui Lei, a level 35 priest from Qingyun City. Principal Jia invited her to arrive early to take care of Sister Lee. She noted that she would not have broken the rules if she had not known about Lee's potential to take the top spot. It wasn't just Lee's determination to hold back the cold that caught her attention, but also his potential that no ordinary boy could show. Lee, impressed by her ability, asks about the possibility of healing his sister. Kui Lei explained that the coldness emanating from the body was evidence of blood awakening. She revealed that when the game world merged with reality, many players chose different races for their characters, and as a result, some people gained special traits, such as green eyes and long ears for those with elven blood, or the ability to grow into giants. The size of those who have the blood of giants. During the last 200 years, representatives of various races mixed their blood with humans, but after many generations, these characteristics and powers were lost, except in cases of special awakening of the blood. Kui Lei explained to Lee that blood awakening can have both positive and negative consequences. A successful awakening increases power control and learning abilities, but failure can result in paralysis or even instant death. She also noted that Sister Lee was suffering from the cold because her body was too weak to withstand the power of the blood. Lee learned that only the rare ice lotus could alter a person's physiology enough to heal his sister. The last time this artifact appeared at auction was 30 years ago, and was sold for 1.3 billion to an anonymous buyer. Kui Lei warned Lee that in 3 months the cold would reach its full strength and her sister would not be able to contain it. After that, she opened the portal and left the room, advising Lee to contact her after making a decision. She suggested 2 ways: find the ice lotus or use the sealing technique to seal the blood's power, although this would limit the sister's future development. 5 days later, Lee trained intensively, completing his daily fitness plan that included squats, push-ups, deadlifts, and weapon strikes 200 times. He also paid attention to the balanced consumption of water and distribution of characteristic points. Under the 2332 system, understanding the importance of balanced development for Paladin. Shortly after, the news announced the results of the exam, where Lee from Lijiang City took first place, which was reported in the report. The mayor's assistant expressed his admiration for Lee, noting his success in the Paladin class, and offered the city a. In every cafe of the city, people enthusiastically discussed Lee and his outstanding victory over the boss, which became a real sensation. A young man was sitting on the couch at home, intently watching a replay of Lee's battle with the boss on TV. He watched this fight many times, impressed by his skill. The boy had beautiful red hair and was dressed in red, considering this color to be his favorite. He couldn't accept that Lee had broken his record, clearing the level in 9 minutes and 24 seconds. This caused a flurry of emotions in the red-haired young man, because earlier he was considered the record holder and the star of the arena. While walking down the street, Lee received a call from Chizhao's secretary, who informed him of a reward from the administration of 5 million in cash and a luxurious mansion. The secretary also mentioned that representatives from the top 3 universities were already on their way to him, interested in his admission. During the walk, Lee was approached by a university recruiter, Rong Yang, who offered 4 million for admission. In the midst of their conversation, a helicopter appeared, from which a man descended, introducing himself as a recruiter from Modu University, ready to offer twice as much for Lee's admission. A girl appeared next to Lee who offered an even larger amount and promised to provide him with the best conditions if he chose their university. The day was a real test for Lee, because his unexpected success in the arena attracted the attention of not only fans and envious people, but also representatives of elite educational institutions, each of which was ready to do anything to recruit the budding star. The girl with the wings suddenly grabbed Lee, trying to steal him without permission, which added to the tension of the situation. During their flight over the city, a magical spell suddenly descended on the girl's head, which appeared right in the air, applied by an unknown sorcerer. The woman who intervened stopped the winged girl, claiming that Lee's abduction made no sense, and introduced herself as a representative of Suhan University, issuing a warning. The representative of Modu University expressed his conditions, promising to provide Lee with A-rank cultivation resources and a full set of gold-rank equipment annually. The girl who tried to kidnap Lee assured him that her goal was only to talk to him alone, and urged him to choose one of the universities, trying to win his sympathy. University recruiter Su Mei made her own offer, stressing that strength trumps all else, and if Lee can make it to the top students, he will gain access to C-rank resources. She also noted that Suhan University has repeatedly won the freshman competition for the past 4 years. The rivalry between representatives of the universities only intensified. Lee seriously considered offers from each university, realizing that any one of them could provide him with a brilliant future. In the end, he caught the attention of everyone present and announced his choice. Lee chose Suhan University, after which a representative of the university immediately issued a special enrollment contract, confirming his decision to become part of their academic community. Signing the contract with University Representative Suhan, a level 42 magical girl, Lee could feel her strength and desire to compete resonate with his own aspirations. At the moment of signing the contract, Lee's cross, which he wore on his chest, began to glow with the document, symbolizing the agreement and activation of the agreement. The girl gave Lee a week to collect his things, after which she promised to take him to the university, emphasizing the beginning of a new stage in his life. She explained that the academic year at Suhan University starts earlier than usual so that students can receive high-quality training as soon as possible. This was necessary so that students could build up their strength faster and achieve better results in competitions among freshmen. Meanwhile, Sister Lee was transferred to a much larger room in the mansion provided by the mayor's assistant, where she entertained herself with a state-of-the-art robot. Before leaving, Lee asked the secretary to look after his sister for a while, taking care of her well-being. His concern for his sister was so touching that it could not leave anyone who witnessed this scene indifferent. As he got into the car, it was the first time Lee had left his sister and gone so far, feeling a mixture of excitement and anxiety for the future. Ahead of him was serious preparation, because entering Suhan University opened up new opportunities and challenges for which he had to be ready. The car, with Lee inside, was instantly transported through a portal that opened a new world before them. They ended up in the city of Ananin, a student campus of Suhan University, which cooperates with the military. Proximity to the massive teleportation system built next to the university made travel safe and convenient. A huge wooden gate greeted Lee at the entrance to the university, where representatives of various races met, from gigantic giants to small goblins and ordinary people. A university representative led Lee through the corridors to officially register him as a student. Suddenly, right next to them, a boy flew past in the air, creating an unforgettable impression. He was sent flying by a girl with a sword behind his back, and judging by the way he flew, the blow was extremely strong. Angrily, the girl warned the boy she hit that he shouldn't bother her anymore, pointing out that it was just a warning. Eyewitnesses discussed the incident, commenting that the boy decided to attack the wrong person, trying to make acquaintances with freshmen, but finally received the well-deserved punishment. Lee, who had just arrived here, was surprised by what he saw, but he quickly realized that this university had descendants of various races, so he should be prepared for such encounters in the future. The university representative used fire magic to create a student ID for Lee, officially confirming him as a student at Suhan University. Lee's student ID card showed his ranking and number of points, emphasizing his high standing among the students. Continuing down the corridor, a university representative explained to Lee the rules of university life. Each course had its own rating, and the higher the student's level, the higher his place in this rating. Ranking of first-year students was based on their success in exams. She stressed that the freshman competition will be held in a month, where Lee will have a chance to solidify his position, but at the same time will be a target for others who will seek to take his place. The representative also mentioned the point rating system, which allowed students to use points to purchase necessary goods and services. Freshmen received points based on their ranking, which they could spend on food, gear, potions, books, and more. Points could be earned in two ways: by completing tasks with a student ID or through a place in the world ranking, where students received a certain number of points each month based on their position. The university had 3 main locations for training: the Goblin Dungeon, designed for levels 17 to 21, Warped Forest for levels 23 to 26, and Purgatory for levels 28 to 31. Lee will need to spend a certain amount of points to access these locations, but he can also use the training hall to level up, where his opponents can be both robots and real people. In this system, the strongest student has absolute power and the most resources, emphasizing the brutality of the struggle for survival in the university world. The smile on Lee's face clearly expressed his enthusiasm and positive attitude towards his new experience at Suhan University, which showed his confidence and willingness to take on new challenges. After a detailed explanation of the university's rules by a representative, she and Lee found a large group of students congregating together. They passed by the crowd of students without stopping, going about their business. This caused lively discussion among the students, who wondered who Lee was and why the teacher was personally accompanying him, since students were usually divided into groups and accompanied by senior students. One of the students explained that for newcomers from a special set, a teacher is appointed to facilitate their adaptation and to introduce them to the course of university affairs more quickly. After hearing that Lee had won first place, one girl was interested and asked to tell more about this guy. He was introduced as Joe Lee, a level 30 Paladin, the top one in the Suhan district, much to everyone's surprise. Everyone was shocked to hear this and started actively discussing his achievements, the way he defeated the boss and the monsters, and pointed out that Lee had enough charisma to become a celebrity. However, some students expressed doubts about the veracity of the information about his first place among freshmen, not believing the rumors. A youth from the skeptics group said he believed the story of Lee's first place was nothing more than fiction, prompting further discussion among students. On his way through the corridor, Lee was interrupted by a youth with fiery red hair who blocked his path. This young man introduced himself as Liu Jin, a level 30 knight who was ranked 38th, and expressed doubts about Lee's strength enough for the top spot, offering him a challenge. The senior student standing behind Liu Jing tried to stop him, pointing out that the top 1 status was unanimously determined by the chancellor and the 5 teachers, and the chance of error was eliminated. However, Liu Jin ignored his words. The other students saw Liu Jin's challenge as an attempt to use Lee's reputation to boost his own ranking. Lee, standing before Liu Jing, asked why he should accept his challenge. In response, Liu Jin offered 100 points if Lee won, demanding nothing in return if he lost. Lee knew he had to accept this challenge to protect his future university career, but he decided to raise the stakes so that the lesson would be remembered by all. He stated that he is ready to fight for 300 points, emphasizing his confidence. Liu Jin's face turned pale as he risked losing almost all of his points with only 400 in his account. The opinion spread among observers that Liu Jin was too confident at the beginning of the semester, risking everything unnecessarily. Lee, wanting to push Liu Jin to a decision, declared that he would leave if Liu Jin did not have enough courage to accept the challenge. Unable to give up such pressure, Liu Jin agreed. Okay, 300 points, let's go to the ring. Lee, radiating the Paladin's yellow aura, summoned strength and confidence as he faced his opponent. He offered a condition. If Liu Jin did not fall to his knees after 3 attacks, then Lee would be considered defeated. A woman in leather clothing announced the start of the fight, emphasizing the rule of avoiding lethal techniques and indicating that the fight would begin on her countdown to 1. Liu Jin instantly charged, eager to prove his striking superiority as a retribution knight. He performed a huge swing over Lee's head, intending to deliver a blood strike. At the moment of the attack, Liu Jin believed in his victory, convinced that his blow would be decisive. However, the sword flew past Lee's face without touching him. Lee's response was instantaneous as his knee met Liu Jin's chest. The punch sent Liu Jing far outside the ring where he crashed into the wall, feeling a sharp pain. The force of the impact was so great that Liu Jin was on his knees, unable to feel his body. For Lee, this fight turned out to be too easy. He had hoped for a more serious challenge, and was disappointed to learn that his opponent could not sustain even a single blow. The audience watching the duel held their breath waiting for the result, completely fascinated by what was happening. After the incident, the senior examined Liu Jin and informed a university representative of the severity of his injuries, including 5 broken ribs and internal bleeding, after which he passed out. She immediately ordered the priest to heal the wounded man. For the win, Lee received 300 points, which were immediately transferred to his student ID. The white-haired girl who had previously impressed everyone with her strength had been watching the fight closely, and recognizing Lee's strength, approached him with the offer of a duel. She came out to Lee, offering to test his strength in a duel, acknowledging his status as a top 1 student. Lee, upon encountering her, felt that she was not only a descendant of demonic blood, but also the wielder of the Dark Moon ancient sword, an heirloom weapon of the highest rank. In his hands was the Mystic Light Warhammer, also of star rank, and he accepted her challenge. As the fight began, the girl tried to deliver a quick strike from the shadows, trying to hit Lee with lightning speed. Lee responded with a stormhammer that dealt massive damage and knocked the enemy back at full swing. Their weapons collided in the center of the arena with a loud explosion that excited everyone present and made this moment the climax of the competition. The powerful collision threw both back, creating a spectacular sight for onlookers. She acknowledged Lee's extreme power, calling him a true monster in the arena, and decided to use a demonic strike that charged her sword with dark elemental energy, giving it impressive power. Lee, with a smile on his face, rushed into the attack, glad to find a worthy opponent, which gave him the real excitement of the fight. They used a variety of strikes during the fight, including uppercuts, quick strikes, shockwaves, and devastating blows, showing a high level of skill. Their weapons collided with tremendous force, each trying to outmatch the opponent's blows. The sparks from their blows lit up everything around them, creating an exciting action with Lee's golden energy and his opponent's purple energy. Observers were amazed. It is hard to believe that such spectacular fights take place between students. She applied an enhanced block that absorbed the damage, forcing her to parry every strike instead of 1 out of 3, requiring her to adapt to Lee's aggressive style. Viewers wondered if Lee was risking his powers too lightly, or if he was completely confident in his abilities, because he did not try to conserve energy. They noticed that from the start, Lee was restricting his opponent's movements, forcing her to block his hammer, which showed his strategic approach to the fight. Observers wondered how warlike and yet courageous this paladin must be to engage such a charming opponent without hesitation. Lee, feeling that the warm-up was over, prepared to show his true skill. He activated his unique abilities, including God's Gift, Courage, Weapon Blessing, and Dawn Blessing, greatly enhancing his attacks. His opponent felt incredible pressure from Lee's growing strength, forcing her to struggle with every breath. Lee decided to use the Spear of Victory, a weapon designed for a decisive blow. At the same time, she used Ghost Strike, quickly moving a certain distance to counterattack. Their punches were so powerful that the floor beneath them shattered into pieces, highlighting the immense power they put into each punch. Lee, with his experience and intuition, predicted her next moves as he prepared for the decisive attack. The situation in which she found herself on her knees with Lee's hammer pointed straight at her indicated her impending defeat in this fight. However, at the critical moment, when the hammer was almost at the girl's head, Lee suddenly stopped, unable to strike such a charming opponent, showing not only his skill, but also his nobility. In her eyes, Lee became something of a savior when he stopped his punch at the last moment. This gesture was not a sign of disdain or a thought of her weakness. On the contrary, Lee felt a special strength and dignity in her. After the match was over, as she got back to her feet, Lee wondered if she had used her full strength against him, as he noticed that she hadn't used her full swordsmanship or dark element power. She confirmed his observation, noting that it was just friendly sparring and that she purposely didn't use all her trump cards because she didn't think it was necessary. She also noted that Lee didn't fight with his full strength either, referring to a video of his exam that she was able to see. After that, she offered to meet him again to get to know him better. As they exchanged glances, there seemed to be a mutual sympathy between them that heralded the beginning of a new acquaintance, or perhaps something more. After Miss picked him up, she brought him to his new home, which seemed to be a place with its own secrets and promises. In the freshman dormitory spread over a small mountain, ordinary students live at the foot, while at the very top there is a dormitory for priority students, as if they were guarding the entrance to heaven. At the entrance to the dormitory, Mist paused, looking back at Lee, and asked if he was really looking for the Ice Lotus, surrounded by legend and mystery. In the narrow corridor, she told him that there was a group that saw the Ice Lotus in the Stormwind Mountains, but due to the danger from high-level monsters, no one dared to collect it. Important disclaimer: this information is 6 years old. Later, Lee went to his room, where he began to study the Stormwind Mountains in detail with the help of a computer, preparing for the challenges ahead. Analyzing the information, he realized that with his current strength, he would only be able to escape if he encountered a high-level monster. But the system promised him resurrection in case of death after passing the exam. Despite his doubts, Lee was certain that the mountains would contain what was needed to cure his sister, and it was a risk he was willing to take. He acquired the protective enchantments VDJ, Radiant Strike, and Shield of Holy Light VDJ, necessary to protect him as a level 1 paladin, which he was fortunately able to obtain for free. Armed with all the necessary equipment, Lee finally set out for the Stormwind Mountains, ready for all the dangers that lay ahead. Walking among the rocky peaks, he suddenly heard a distant explosion, a sign that his adventure was just beginning. Intrigued by the strange sounds, Lee activated his new Forest Set skill, which allowed him to silently approach the source of the noise, though it cost him a lot of points. At that time, the white-haired girl, immersed in the world of social media, was lying in her room and going through correspondence with Lee, hoping to find something more than a simple conversation in them. In the text, she suggested that Lee go to the practice squad together tomorrow, but when she was rejected, she hugged her pillow in frustration, feeling the pain of rejection. Upset, she decided to call her friend via video link. A friend immediately noticed her depressed state and asked what was wrong, sensing a change in her mood. Unable to resist, the girl admitted that she had met a special guy and planned to go to the Stormwind Mountains to meet him, despite the possible risks. In the mountains, a girl named Mechanic Ju Zhao was setting up her explosive devices, which she placed right in the path of the monsters. Monsters attacking weapons activated mines and detonated, creating chaos and destruction in their ranks. Her fighting partner was Wen Tian, VD Javid, who used his Ice Spirit summoning ability to effectively destroy monsters in his path. Together, in a car, they broke through the crowds of monsters, getting closer to their goal with every kilometer. Also with them was the alien tribute marksman, equipped with a huge machine gun, which she skillfully engaged the enemies, accurately shooting them in the head, providing the team with the necessary fire cover. Shooter Chuju Dan amazed everyone with her ability. Her shooting was so intense that the bullets flew at the monsters like lava from a volcano. Sitting in the back of the car, she destroyed the enemies one by one without any chance for them to survive. One of the most skilled fighters was the swordswoman Sukinglian, whose skill with the sword inspired admiration and fear in the hearts of their enemies. However, suddenly a loud explosion rang out next to her, sending a wave that nearly swept her away, leaving her dazed and confused. The truck they were riding in was overturned by the powerful blast wave, throwing everyone on board into a chaotic dance of metal and glass. Everyone found themselves on the floor of the overturned truck, not understanding what had happened. Mixed feelings of panic and uncertainty filling the group. Suddenly, the girl who had fallen to the floor in horror asked her friend to go back, looking back at what was left behind. Demons appeared behind them, one of the 5 particularly cruel ones known for their lust for living creatures. Using all the resources and skills available, the group was only able to kill 4 demons, which seemed like a tiny victory to them against the total number of enemies. It seemed to them that they had already met their end, when suddenly, from the mist between the trees, Lee appeared on a huge white wolf, like a rider to the rescue, radiating charisma and strength, ready to come to the aid of his friends in a desperate battle. Lee bursts onto the scene in no time, ready to save his comrades. He activates his Holy Storm skill, which immediately challenges monsters. A huge golden cross appears in the sky, creating an incredible sight that looms over the monsters with heavenly power. The cross, like a hurricane, rolls through the ranks of monsters, crushing them one by one, leaving no chance of survival. Lee shows himself on a new, much tougher level, where a small cross shining on his forehead controls a huge cross that destroys enemies. This ability causes a powerful hurricane that blows away everything in its path, from monsters to trees. Lee sits on his huge white wolf, which he also summoned. The wolf looks majestic, with blue eyes glowing the color of cold. The wolf has the ability to breathe ice, which, combined with the fire of the Golden Cross, has an amazing power, capable of felling even trees. As Lee and his wolf destroy all the monsters in their path, the 4 students who have just experienced failure look up to him, believing him to be their savior. Upon approaching each of them, Lee uses the slow regeneration skill, helping them recover from their injuries and regain their strength. A feeling of gratitude and wonder fills the hearts of the students, who now see in Lee not just a strong warrior, but a true hero, ready to risk himself for the sake of others. One of the girls, a member of the Blue Phoenix, a top 3 university team, thanked Lee profusely, noting that she didn't expect him to know about them. Lee, familiar with the team's reputation, merely nodded in response. After that, one of the girls picked up her seriously injured comrade and told Lee that the monsters in this area were very dangerous, and they should return to base to assess the situation. Li thought about how he had spent a month searching for the ice lotus in the outer regions without finding any trace. Knowing that the freshman competition would be held in 3 days, he decided that he would continue his search after that. Having agreed to the girl's proposal, they prepared to retreat. The same girl activated her ability, Metal Spirit of Speed Phantom Rumble, summoning a giant mechanical spider. Under her, a circle with symbols formed on the ground, from which a spider appeared. A spider that emerged from a cloud of smoke became their means of escape. The girl, showing off a little, shouted that there was little time and everyone should immediately get on the spider and run away from this place. Li asked her if demons were common in the Stormwind Mountains. She replied that their team had been exploring these mountains for over 2 months now, but this was the first time they encountered demons, which could mean that the demons came from deep within the mountains or from a nearby base. She added that they should immediately return to the base and inform the military. Li questioned why there were no magic towers controlling the area in the war zone. She explained that there are many monsters in the mountains, and to prevent them from attacking peaceful towns, there is a supply and trade base built by the military at the entrance to the area. She pointed out that although there is a magic tower here, the level of the local monsters is too low to detect it. Li disagreed with this statement because level 20 silver rank demons could not be considered weak, and this called into question the effectiveness of the tower. The magic tower, she said, mostly tracks epic and legendary level monsters in the depths of the mountains. She explained that if a monster's level is below the minimum threshold, the magic towers cannot detect it. She wondered why, if there was a spatial rift here, only low-level monsters were sent to it. If the rift lets 30th level demons through, nothing will prevent demons of level 50 or even higher from passing through it. This could not only endanger their lives, but also expose the location of the crack. So it is important to think now about how to pass all the information to the military after they return. Suddenly, the sound of monsters chanting "food, food, food" came from behind the trees. Focusing on the aura blowing in the distance, Li realized that the demons had discovered someone else who was there. He turned to the team girl and told them to go first, promising to catch up with them later to ensure their safety and face the next threat himself. Despite the fear of others, Li felt nothing but determination. He was in his element, fearless in the face of danger. He mounted his white wolf and charged forward. Picking up speed on the wolf, Li watched the aura intently. She seemed very familiar to him, which only increased his urgent urge to act. Li tried to understand why she was here, and suddenly realized that it was the white-haired girl who had corresponded with him before. She was alone against almost 20 silver-rank demons. The chances of holding out in such an unequal fight were minimal. Meanwhile, another team of students idly sat on the ground debating whether they should help, but one of them suggested they stay away, believing they themselves were trapped. You could easily read fear and timidity on their faces, which made them stand out as cowards. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl fought heroically against the monsters, giving her all. She used all her skills trying to inflict maximum damage on the demons. Over time, the demons realized that her powers had a time limit and began to surround her, avoiding direct contact so that her powers would drain. Demons acted in groups of 10 monsters. Even after killing 8, she had to deal with constantly increasing ranks of enemies. She had almost no chance of escaping to the base unless she could break through their lines before her strength was completely depleted. Li, seeing the situation, prepared to intervene to save her at the last minute. Suddenly, like a roll of thunder, everything around was lit up with golden lightning that came out of nowhere, illuminating the carnage around. She felt an aura approaching VDJ, powerful and brave. It was help that seemed to her like a shoulder, ready to support in the most difficult moment. Li appeared on his white wolf, his energy and help cut through the air. He raced towards her at great speed, shouting at her to move aside, thus trying to lead her away from the greatest danger. A huge monster appeared behind her, growling at the entire forest, its voice echoing in every tree. This monster's berserker mode was activated. It became bigger and more aggressive. Its body took on impressive dimensions. The demon's transition into berserker mode meant that his power increased exponentially, making him an extremely dangerous opponent. She yelled at Li to run away, as she knew that in ghost mode the demon became even stronger, and normal attacks were useless against him. Realizing the danger, she believed that if she self-destructed, there was a good chance she could kill the demon VDJ, a 90% chance VDJ, and thereby protect Li. These thoughts were very noble of her, but Li pushed aside her fear, mounted her white wolf, and prepared to challenge the monster. The monster turned out to be so powerful that his punches destroyed everything around, creating cracks even in the ground. Li, using his next move, summoned Light Punishment, a powerful skill that caused lightning to descend from the sky, destroying everything in its path. These bolts of lightning struck the ground mercilessly, dealing massive damage to everything beneath them. turning the demons to ashes. As he watched the results of his magical attack, Lee couldn't help but admit that it was understandable why many people sought out the magic class VDJ. Killing monsters from a distance was really fun. Meanwhile, the other monsters were also rushing towards him, trying to save the day. There were countless monsters VDJ, about 180 demons VDJ surrounding them from all sides. Lee and the girl stood together, assessing the situation. They looked great together, and he considered using mass attacks, but the monsters were scattered all over the area, creating a noise that prevented them from focusing on one spot. Lee placed 2 fingers to the girl's temple, starting a slow regeneration process that caused a yellow aura to leave her head. These were blessings of dawn, blessing of weapons, and God's gift, all possible Paladin power-ups that Lee gave her to enhance her abilities. She felt all these improvements in her body. The 2 of them were now sitting on the white wolf, and her characteristics had greatly improved, making her stronger. At the crucial moment, Lee left her on the wolf, jumped off it himself, picked up the great hammer and rushed towards the demons, ready for another clash to end this invasion once and for all. Swinging his hammer in a swing, Lee charges at the demons, knocking out 3 opponents with a single blow, dealing devastating damage to them. The girl watches this action from the side, admiring the power of his punches, which seemed to be 25% stronger, nearly doubling her own strength. She knew that no 16th or even 25th level paladin was capable of such feats, which made Lee an exceptional warrior on the battlefield. Suddenly, a giant demon appeared in front of her, which met with the sharp teeth of the wolf, which threw him back. With no time to think about her thoughts, the girl follows Lee's request and charges at the monster with the sword, using her skill and speed. Together, like water and fire, they easily destroy a crowd of demons, becoming a deadly team. At a critical moment, when Lee was struggling, a demon appeared behind him. The demon swings his sword at Lee, but he misses and the sword flies out of his hands. The girl, using her skill Shadow Whip, concentrates the demonic energy in her hand and knocks the sword out of the demon's hands, inflicting heavy damage on it. Supplementing her attack adds the effects of Potion of Darkness. Without much time to think, Lee activates an orb of sacred light that protects allies and makes them immune to physical damage, giving them an important tactical advantage on the battlefield. Lee activates his powerful Holy Cross skill, creating a huge cross of holy light behind him. This cross emits a tremendous amount of energy, and all enemies within a certain range are affected by the holy fire that spreads around them. The girl, standing under a protective dome, watches this impressive scene with rapt attention, feeling the power and majesty of Lee. Despite being outnumbered by the monsters, Lee confidently continues his fight, showing no signs of fatigue or fear. Under the influence of the sacred light, all darkness seems doomed as its light devours the darkness, restoring order and light. This light becomes the focus of a holy storm that unfolds in a certain area, dealing significant damage to all enemies in a certain radius. Huge golden crosses begin to descend from the heavens, hitting the ground with a thunderous roar, each strike eliminating hordes of monsters. The blows of these crosses cause enormous damage, causing large blast waves that blow everything around to pieces. The next phase is a powerful hurricane created from the explosive energy, which drags every monster into its maelstrom. The hurricane scatters them in different directions, dispersing the dangerous mass of enemies and reducing their threat, leaving the battlefield in a dazed but liberated state. A hurricane of incredible power sweeps through the earth, discharging even the earth itself, leaving scorched traces behind. It is so huge that it can be seen even from afar, impressing with its scale and power. The guys, who were afraid to help the girl and hid in the bushes, watch this hurricane from behind the branches and can't believe that someone is capable of creating such a thing. Suddenly, one of them asks their boss if they should reveal themselves and come over. The boss agrees and says that they should befriend the guy who is able to create such a miracle, seeing it as an important strategic move. After killing all the monsters, Lee reaches level 17, gaining 15 stat points and 15 skill points. He is currently level 18 thanks to killing 180 demons and gaining 60,000 experience. It's just a pity that the amount of experience that can be gained is limited by level. Otherwise, he would have gained a lot more.